Hi, I'm Jennifer. Welcome to Orton Gillingham Coaching. Today I want to talk about the scope and sequence in Orton Gillingham. You will want to use one. Many curriculums do, and this is a full scope and sequence, so you can see it's quite detailed and goes very far. So using a scope and sequence is very important. And Orton Gillingham starts with the most basic unit of sound, the phoneme, and builds a connection between the sounds, which is our auditory of the letters, and then it connects those with what a student sees visually, and then what a student writes kinesthetically. So that is that three-prong approach, which is called MultiSensory, that makes Orton Gillingham Orton Gillingham. And the reason that they created it this way is because MultiSensory, the three-prong, the visual, hearing, and kinesthetic, all builds and imprints pathways in the brain. And the more you do these with each lesson, it imprints those pathways on the brain. So we do want to use the MultiSensory in Orton Gillingham. So what does that have to do with a scope and sequence in Orton Gillingham? It means that even though you may find different curriculums that are Orton Gillingham that don't look just alike, if they don't start with the basic units of sound and connect those with writing and seeing it, then you are not using a multisensory approach, and you probably are not teaching Orton Gillingham. I mentioned that there are multiple scope and sequences in the Orton Gillingham program. You'll find you may have one right now that you're using that is different from another teacher's, and that's fine. They're going to vary. But asking yourself, how important is it that I'm using it? The answer is it's very important to use it. Because Orton Gillingham is sequential, it's in a sequence, and it is cumulative. So each lesson builds upon the next. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't do an assessment of your student. I have a link in the description here of a assessment that I was given when I took a course. It's free and it's a good one. It's from Florida education system, and I recommend checking it out. But so personally I do assessments, but I also start from the beginning, and the reason is because, well, there's a couple reasons, but one is because even as an adult I didn't know that S said S and Z when I started my course. So I assume that not everybody knows that now, because I didn't, and I didn't know many things that I learned. So even if you have a fourth grader, it's important to go and pull those cards out and just start from the beginning, as well as know the weak points from your assessment and get going on those as well. I've personally seen a student who struggled with spelling and had a real aha moment, which showed me why I start from the beginning of my scope and sequence. It was a second grader. They gave me a sight word list every week, and he was struggling, and I covered those words in his lesson, but I also just started going through the consonant and vowel decks, reading consonant and vowels. And then I went through the syllable patterns and a couple of spelling rules, and so suddenly I just got the word. He was cured. I really believe he just didn't know all the sounds letters made, and I don't think he knew about syllable patterns, and just really knowing those letters and the letter sounds is what caught him up. That's what made me think, okay, I'm always going to start from the beginning, and I do. So the scope and sequence is your roadmap as a teacher, and it can also serve as your checklist. This is the scope and sequence from my workbook, scope and sequence workbooks, and what I do is this is the whole scope and sequence in each one, and then I do in each workbook bite-sized scope and sequence. So if this is workbook 1, it'll start with the beginning of those letters. So and then it also has it has the letter sounds, but it also has boxes for check marks on all of it. So and I like to use it that way. How do you teach a multisensory lesson? It's asking the student to use 3 senses. It is auditory, kinesthetic, and visual. And I'm going to use the M as an example. You would pull out your card and you would say, what is this letter? M. And what does it say? And what is the key word? Magnet. You can use man if the child is younger or if you just want to, but those are important. Then I'm going to imprint on their mind by feeling it, the kinesthetic. And these are sandpaper cards. They come with this little sandpaper on them. And I like these especially for younger children. So you have them trace the letter with their fingers, saying or M. You could say the letter name or you could say the letter sound, but I always like for them also to say the keyword with it. I think it's a great thing for them to imprint that keyword on their brain. Sometimes when you can't recall a letter or letter sound, a student can recall a keyword. So give them a lot of ways to recall. So magnet, M, magnet, or man, man. To summarize, the Orton Gillingham scope and sequence should start with letters, letter sounds, and it should have a multisensory approach. You'll find that scope and sequences differ in Orton Gillingham some, but they all start with letters and letter sounds, and they are all multisensory, and that is the most important part. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next video.